Following this attack, the 76-year-long Israel-Palestine war could finally come to an end, with Israel emerging victorious for Palestine. This conflict, which has seen countless lives lost and numerous attempts at peace, might finally see a resolution. The airstrikes, meticulously planned and executed, have targeted key strategic locations, crippling the opposition's ability to retaliate. The international community watches closely, as the implications of this decisive strike could reshape the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. With the potential for a new era of peace and stability, the world holds its breath, hoping that this marks the end of one of the longest and most contentious conflicts in modern history. The airstrike on Lebanon marked a significant escalation in the conflict. On a seemingly ordinary day, the skies over Lebanon darkened as Israeli fighter jets launched a series of precision strikes. The targets were meticulously chosen: key Hezbollah strongholds, missile depots, and infrastructure critical to their operations. This was not just a retaliatory act, but a calculated move to cripple Hezbollah's military capabilities. The airstrike sent shockwaves through the region, both literally and figuratively, signaling Israel's firm stance against any threats to its security. The immediate aftermath saw widespread destruction, with plumes of smoke rising from the targeted sites. Civilians in nearby areas were caught in the chaos, with many fleeing their homes to seek safety. The international community watched with bated breath, aware that this could be a tipping point in the long-standing conflict. This operation demonstrated the extent of Israel's military prowess and its readiness to take decisive action when provoked. It also underscored the complex web of alliances and enmities in the Middle East, making it clear that any act of aggression would be met with a formidable response. As a result, thousands of rocket launcher barracks located in 40 locations in southern Lebanon were destroyed, and the entire area was leveled. The destruction was widespread, with debris and rubble scattered across the region. Smoke rose from the ruins as emergency responders and civilians sifted through the wreckage, searching for survivors and assessing the damage. The landscape was unrecognizable, with buildings reduced to mere piles of rubble. Local residents described the scene as apocalyptic, with their homes and livelihoods obliterated in an instant. Military vehicles patrolled the area, ensuring no further threats emerged. Aerial footage of the border area revealed the full extent of the devastation, with vast swaths of land left barren. During a press conference, military officials detailed the operation, displaying maps and strategic plans. The global reaction was swift, with international news coverage highlighting the severity of the strike and its implications for the region. Another thing to consider is that if you look at Israel, you'll see that it has been surrounded by enemies since its inception. So how can a small country, literally smaller than the state of New Jersey, with a population of approximately 9 million, similar to that of New York City, defeat so many countries on its own? And why am I saying that Israel will finally win this war? Let's start with the country Israel has recently attacked, Lebanon. So, on the morning of August 25th, around 5 a.m., Israel launched an airstrike on southern Lebanon with 100 fighter jets, completely destroying the southern region. Israel justified this action by stating that they had received intelligence that Hezbollah was planning an imminent attack on them. So, before Hezbollah could carry out their attack, Israel destroyed their launch sites. But the world knows that Israel's defense system is one of the best, so these missiles had little to no effect. Despite more than 300 missiles being fired at the country, not a single person was killed, and none of Israel's launch sites were destroyed. Hezbollah had targeted Israel's northern and southern regions, where all their military bases are located. Israel's attacks were so intense that by 5 a.m., the war had begun. Israel attacked Hezbollah at 5 a.m., and Hezbollah counterattacked within half an hour. But how did they actually counter every single missile from Hezbollah so effectively? They jammed Hezbollah's GPS systems, meaning that almost all of Hezbollah's missiles, which were GPS-guided, were misled as soon as they were fired. Israel's Iron Dome system then destroyed them in mid-air. Additionally, to locate Hezbollah's air bases so accurately, the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, tweeted that they were constantly surveilling Hezbollah's military areas. As soon as Hezbollah launched a missile, the activity was tracked, and Israel's air forces would get the exact location of their air bases, allowing them to quickly airstrike and destroy them. Moreover, on July 30th, Israel assassinated Hezbollah's chief, Fuad Shukur, in the heart of Beirut, Lebanon's capital city, by conducting an airstrike on his residence. This means that the organization has lost both its head and its existence, effectively removing one of Israel's enemies. Now let's move on to Israel's second enemy, West Bank's Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade. In Palestine's West Bank area, there is a political party called Fatah, which has a militant wing known as the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade. Of course, this organization has only one objective: to wipe Israel off the world map. To eliminate this organization, Israel first arrested 3,700 terrorists from this organization after the major attack by Hamas on October 7th, during which they had. Secondly, and even more importantly, Israel killed the organization's founder-in-chief Khalil al-Maghdad. Israel's attack plan was very strategic because Khalil was the founder of a terrorist organization. So, by killing Khalil, Israel eliminated yet another enemy and sent a strong message to all the terrorist organizations in the Middle East that if they mess with Israel, their fate will be the same as Khalil's. The story of Hamas is particularly interesting. Hamas would hide among these civilians, using them as human shields and store weapons in bunkers. So, to eliminate Hamas, Israel did not just launch airstrikes but also conducted a ground invasion to minimize civilian casualties. It took them 7 months to reach Rafah, which is why, in May, the entire world was focused on Rafah. However, when Israel had been continuously attacking Palestine for the last 7 months, destroying all these areas, why did the global outrage only emerge during the Rafah attack? The main reason behind this is that Hamas mainly operates out of Rafah. As soon as Israel encircled Rafah, Hamas immediately went to the US to negotiate a peace treaty with Israel. For the past 7 months, Israel had been attacking Gaza, and what once looked like this, unfortunately, now looks like this. On May 29th, Israel finally invaded Rafah, and even today they continue to carry out attacks there. Of course, after capturing Rafah, Israel wouldn't spare Hamas's chief. By eliminating a top leader in front of all these countries, Israel was basically sending a strong message to everyone, a warning that they would not tolerate any threat. Israel was successful in this mission. So, if you look at the situation from a macro perspective, Israel has successfully neutralized all its major enemies. This is because its most immediate threats came from terrorist organizations in these 3 countries. But I repeat, terrorist organizations, not the civilians of these countries. From Israel's perspective, it has wiped out the terrorist organizations in these countries, but what about the civilians? Because until now, they have been entirely anti-Israel. Due to this sentiment, a large anti-Israel narrative has shaped globally. Israel has always been viewed as an aggressor, as a violator of human rights, even today. If you look closely, the terrorist organizations in these countries have brainwashed civilians to the extent that they always supported these terrorist organizations. It's evident that they didn't see them as terrorists because in their eyes they were fighting for their country's rights. Do you remember the saying, "One nation's terrorist is another nation's freedom fighter"? That's why these organizations received significant support from the locals, who protected them by acting as human shields. After Israel's attacks, they protested against them, drawing global media attention and resulting in backlash against Israel. But today, although not completely, we can see this narrative changing significantly. According to NBC reports, support for Hamas among Gaza civilians seems to be decreasing. The people there now want to free Palestine through diplomatic means rather than war. Similarly, in Lebanon, we are seeing the same trend. If you look at this graph, Lebanese civilians also do not want to support Hezbollah as much anymore because they feel that continuous war is pushing Lebanon into an economic crisis. So, to sum everything up, Israel has eliminated its 3 most immediate and significant threats: terrorist organizations that wanted to erase its existence from the world. Additionally, there is a noticeable shift in the mindset of the people in these countries who are now tired of war and want to move towards progress. Because they have realized that fighting doesn't achieve anything, they are literally fed up with war and want peace in the region. What do you think? Can we now finally say that Israel versus Palestine is coming to an end? Or do you think these organizations will rise again, choose new leaders, and the cycle will continue? Because ultimately, it's the civilians who suffer in all of this. Their lives are ruined, they experience unrest, and they are the ones who pay the price. Additionally, what about the Houthi rebels in Yemen? They are also thirsty for Israel's blood. In fact, recently after the attacks, the Houthis warned Israel that they were planning a major attack on them. And the most important thing is, where does the funding for all these terrorist organizations mainly come from? From Iran. The Ayatollah Khomeini government in Iran sponsors anti-Israel attacks, gives rise to terrorist organizations in various countries, trains them, and funds them, all to develop more anti-Israel forces to fight Israel. So, what do you think? Will there ever be peace in this Middle Eastern region in the future? Can we truly call this Israel's victory? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But one thing we all have to acknowledge, regardless of our views on Israel, is that Israel, in one way or another, eliminates its enemies one by one. And finally, I just hope, and I'm sure you all do too, that peace comes to the Middle East region as soon as possible. And on that note, let's end this video. Thank you for watching. Take care.